Can everybody put their microphones on? I see we have a full house here tonight.
Strategic planning.
Bill, will you want to be giving public comment, I hope?
Tell us what's going on.
We're streaming live, so we got a few more minutes. We'll wait for the crowds to come in. I almost feel like cheese.
We've been here again.
No.
Oh. We're live videotaping now. It doesn't.
I sent you a note so everyone knows it. I don't think we're going to go that long tonight, but if we do, I have to jump at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to excuse myself.
Okay.
I'm jumping with him,
Yeah,
just for fun.
I'm really doesn't have time.
I'm making a motion that Mike chair the meeting till the end of the night.
Not a sport, it's a dance event. And
Wish
I've
I-
been spending a lot of time focusing on my son's hockey.
Where's
so
Phil?
Wish I
He needs
was
to be
going.
Daddy of the
Yeah.
year.
Where's Phil? We got a problem down there.
Yeah.
I moved that we restrain Mike until 9 o'clock.
Hi, Nate.
Hello.
John Monteleone has some stuff for you.
Finals of their division. D2 state champ.
John Monteleone has some
First time
stuff
ever
for you.
D2.
Strategic planning.
So, yeah, your parents live up the street or something?
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. How the whole-
We're not collecting a commission. We're like, listen, we're
They
out.
weren't in anyone's
We're out.
rankings.
I opened the door for a couple too.
Yeah, happy to help.
And then the number one CD stadium.
Seven. It hasn't started yet. We haven't started. We haven't started. No. We were just joking. No.
Yeah, the only challenge is the team we're playing for the finals.
Okay, I'll call to order the Thursday, March 16th Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 7 p.m. Can I have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To start with, I'd like to take a moment of silence for Joseph Hines Sr. He worked for our town for 34 years, and most recently as assistant road foreman. His son does work for us. If we have a moment of silence for him. Thank you. Another good, was a great employee, 34 years. I'd like to add to the agenda for tonight, an executive session after we get through the reports from the liaisons for executive session to update the board on negotiations with the police contract.
Second.
Have a second. All, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And it'll carry. We'll do it then. Okay. Well, public comment? 3 minutes. Anybody for public comment? Thank you very much.
Can I just
Oh!
say one thing? As a member of the public and the Board of Selectmen, just very briefly, I want to acknowledge Donna Pereira. Everyone here knows Donna, and Donna served this town on this board in this seat for many years, but also volunteered, was a great volunteer with her husband, her late husband Drew. Donna is moving from town and actually has just moved and sold her house with the help of a great real estate guy that I know. But I just wanted to acknowledge, she's moving to San Antonio to be close to her family and her grandkids. But I just wanted to acknowledge her service to this town and thank her for her friendship and mentorship. Justin and I had the great honor of running with her when we were elected to the board. So I just wanted to acknowledge her and thank her for her service to the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to also say, before we get much further, I just want to let you know it's come to my attention. The commissions need to be very wary of using text messages, other forms of instant messaging between members during public meetings, or the perception of doing it at a public meeting. Through Tom Hennick, we will be putting something out. In this time of smartphones, tablets, and more communications that we're doing is done by texting and other instant messaging. When it's done among the board members, it's an FOIA FOI issue can arise. I just want to say that we're streaming, and I'm not saying anybody's doing it, but you can appear to have your phone out or looking at your phone, and it does expose board members to FOI requests for your personal device. So my recommendation is that we don't have our phones out, only because it can be perceived, and if I don't want my personal phone exposed. I don't have anything to hide, but it's a mess. And a reminder, all boards and commissions, we should be aware that emails sent between commission members, board members, reply all is not appropriate. Let's be careful of that. Just to tune up and give you a heads up. In our electronic age, it's a perception of the public, transparency, and I'd rather make sure we stay out of it.
Are you sending a memo to all the boards and commissions?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So with that, we do have people, if I could, we have people in the audience for the bridges here. I would like to, if we could, they've traveled here, and I'd like to not keep them here all night if we can help it. Can we entertain a motion to move new business next in the agenda? Made and seconded, and I know Mike's leaving, so I want to make sure that he hears this. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. So we'll have on the new business, we'll start with the East Flat Hill Road Bridge. And we have a couple of the engineers. If you come up, and that would be helpful. There's a number of, well, we're getting that entertainment here, which will be that there's a couple of options. This is an 80-20.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You brought one for me too? I don't need one, but that's all right. No waste paper. The culvert's on East Flat Hill Road. May, if you want this, you can have
Yeah,
it.
we can give her, some of them.
I have more in the office. Bill, you want
Bill,
one
if you
on?
want one too.
Gentlemen, you can tell us your name and the firm you're working for. And
My name is Gus Mello. I'm with Department of Transportation and Project Engineer, assigned to the East Flat Hill project.
Ed Sackle, Close Sensen and Miller. We're the liaison for the DOT, and I'm the program manager.
okay. So there's three. Go ahead. You can give the presentation.
So what we did, the DOT has taken a few projects on along with the towns for what we call pilot projects. And we're trying to see these jobs through design quicker. And what the department did as a little bit of an incentive to the towns is they were willing to pay the 20% that is generally paid by the municipality for design is being covered by the state in this program. At that point, the department does elect a designer that gets put onto the project, but other than that, the municipality gets any and all input, any comments are incorporated. We certainly welcome any feedback, which is why we're here tonight. The construction still will be the same percentage, where the municipality will be responsible for 20% of the construction cost, and the federal government puts up the 80%. So what we did as part of this is we go through an exhaustive rehabilitation study report phase, which Close Sensen and Miller does. We go out, we do the site visit, we speak to the town and the municipality and early on to gain any solicitation input, as well as obtain any information from the environmental agencies in this case, which is Fisheries, the Audubon Society being right near the bridge. And we put together a rehabilitation study report, and Gus and I met with John about 2 weeks ago and kind of walked through with him, and I believe he relayed a lot of the conversation to you guys. But I would be more than willing to, go as far back as to kind of give a recap of the rehabilitation study report, or if you guys have any specific questions that you want to ask us, however you want to run it, we're certainly prepared to run through the whole report.
There was a new design proposed recently. Can you tell us what what's new about it, what's different from the
Sure, so, I'll just hit the three alternates quick that we looked at. One of which was a rehabilitation, which we would cut and remove 10 feet of the existing pipe, which is the reason why we're looking at rehabilitation, replacing this bridge, is because the bottom of it does have some perforations, it has some holes in it, and it is starting to show signs of its age. So we did put together an alternate for rehabilitation, which is basically you put a concrete cradle lining in the bottom, which we're running as a 25-year service life. We would cut and remove 10 feet of the upstream and downstream section, put new head walls and retaining walls, and that came at a cost of 1.050 when you include incidentals and contingencies. Okay, and I'll get into that, but I just want to walk through the options first. Alternate B was basically replacing pine with new corrugated metal pipe arch culverts. Twin 15 by 9s would basically be exactly the same as it is today. That came out to a loaded cost with incidentals and contingencies of $1.24 million. The third option is a clear span option. It's a 42-foot long pre-stressed deck units cast on integral on piles. And what that does, that's a full replacement. It's a clear bottom, open bottom, which Fisheries is very happy with at this site. And we're running that as about a 100-year service life. And what we did is we did a life cycle cost analysis, which I will certainly speak a little bit more to that. And we just want you guys to be aware of all the costs that go into it. There was some question regarding why some incidentals and contingencies are carried more than others. So for alternate B, we carry 50% incidentals and contingencies, and that's per the DOT's cost estimating guidelines. Anytime you're under $1 million, you carry 50%. It's 40% for incidentals, which is the inspection, anything that goes into the daily kind of processing and auditing to make sure the job's running smoothly in construction, and then you have 10% contingencies. Once you get between $1 million and $5 million, the incidentals reduces to 25%. Contingency stays at 10%. So you're carrying 35% for alternate C. There was a question there as to, hey, why are the numbers different? It's per the guidelines, and that's based on past history. So I think that was maybe a long-winded answer to your question, but did I cover the question? The clear span should have always been an alternate. I'm new to this program in the last 5 months, but I do believe that prior to me they did look at a clear span, and that was presented at the pre-meeting.
I was told that there was a new clear span option that cut the construction time from 8 months to 4 months.
Oh, okay, you're talking about
Using
new
prefab.
okay. Yes, I misunderstood the question. Yes, we have been going to precast abutments, and with the pre-stressed deck units, it allows you to basically, we're showing a 10-week detour out here, which basically allows you to build a whole bridge in 2.5 months. I did a job recently up in Vernon. It was on schedule to do a very similar job, 45-foot span, pre-stressed deck unit, piles, everything. It was on schedule to be done in 6 weeks. It ended up being done in about 10 weeks.
But that new option was about the same price as the old option.
Correct.
It would have taken like 8 months or something.
Right.
George, when Cindy and I went up there to first discuss the project preliminary, everything was preliminary, what you might be interested in. And that was the question I asked, is it would take so long. Can we do some kind of accelerated program or prefab? I know they do that. And well, I think this is relatively newer technology.
Correct.
But we'd heard about it, and we've seen it even on 84 with some of the overpasses being constructed basically overnight. So we asked, and they came up with this, which was a concern about the amount of time it was going to take.
There's no easy detours around that.
I mean, it's fine.
So we're looking at, would be 8 to 12 weeks, and then it's based on, we have to get a design, figure out how many piles there are, to make sure we can go with the precast abutments and the spacing and all that. So we told John it's 8 to 12 weeks is what we anticipate with precast abutments, pre-stressed deck units. If it ends up having to be cast in place abutments, you're looking at probably 10 to 14 weeks for the detour. That would be, not painting the prettiest picture, but that's kind of the true picture for what we feel comfortable with the contract out as.
How many other towns have had to used a prefab or even the
It's,
There's quite a few. I wouldn't have exact-
It's not a new,
You're not the first one, if that's the question. It's been around for a while. It's really site specific if we can go with that or not. So I wouldn't have the exact number of towns, but done quite a few projects with the prefabricated substructures.
I knew it had been used successfully at other bridge projects. So I knew it would, and they needed to determine that it would be able to happen, so.
although this is out of my area of expertise, it just makes sense that if something costs a bit more but lasts almost twice as long, why would you even consider something else? So are we missing something, or is it just because of economics we would go with a cheaper option, or?
And that's why we looked at it, to provide you with a different alternative. Because, every town is different. From doing this pilot program, town economics varies from town to town. So, a town might make a decision based on dollars alone.
I also want to say that we were looking, one of the things about culverts and the Department of Fisheries, the Transylvania stream, the fact that they have taken a sewer system offline, the state sewer system, so the condition of the water in the stream has changed. Rehabbing, you also have to consider that if you look at the pictures, the culvert is above the level of the river. You can fix the culvert, but you're not fixing the fish or amphibians going up the brook. That being said, the next concern for me is they talked about relining, which would reduce the hydraulic flow in high flow down. I don't know if that will work or not. The other thing is if we put new culverts in, it could get tied up in the Department of Fisheries because the Department of Fisheries wants a natural bottom, and they're actually getting away from a artificial natural bottom, if that's the correct word. In other words, dropping it down deep enough to line it with a natural bottom. There is practices of doing that. The third thing that I'm concerned with is what the additional cost is going to be if you do it 20 years from now or 30 years from now. Reconstruction could be almost as much as the cost of the bridge. And then the other thing you got to remember is with doing it, it's what they call, can you explain the salvage? I thought it was like you're salvaging, like you're selling the steel afterwards. But like the Pomperaug River Bridge, the salvage value of rebuilding that bridge is that the bridge abutments are in place. We're not paying for that. That's a value, those bridge abutments in place. So the salvage value of this bridge, when it meets its lifespan, is what do you still have there that you can use? That's
Correct.
okay.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
So you're thinking the abutments will last way more than 100 years?
Well, I don't know what the salvage, if that's what you
Well,
can.
the salvage value is basically when you look at a analysis period. You have to have a cutoff point of your analysis period. So if you say we're at year 1, we build the bridge at year 10, and it has a 100-year lifespan, and we're looking at a 75-year period at year 65, there's still 35 years left of life in that structure. Because that 35 years of life is quantified, and that's its salvage value. So there's still value to the structure just because it's there. So that's kind of what the salvage value really represents in terms of a life cycle cost analysis. So it's like you bought your car. If a 10-year-old car, you're going to be able to sell it for something. So that's its salvage value. If you look at it in the bridge world, you're not going to be able to sell the bridge, but.
And it's going to be, maintenance-wise, it's going to be kept up throughout the process. So we use 100 years, it's 75 to 100 years. We like to use 100 years on these structures. So.
And especially with these, the integral abutments does have the advantage where, it's considered a bridge, a jointless bridge, and the majority of the bridges, the issues we have are with the joints. It leaks with the salts, bridge bearings freeze, they're not able to expand properly. So with these integral abutments, because the actual bridge acts as, the substructure acts as the expansion joint, we eliminate the joints, and we're able to get the extra 25 years of life than a typical, highway bridge that you're seeing, the multi-girders, those are more of a 75-year.
Because that was a question about, originally it was like, they were talking about a 75-year when we first talked, and now it's 100.
Asked that question, so that's the reason what bumped it up to 25 years, but it's basically the same price, or just a little bit more.
Correct. And also too, you know, when we look at the preliminary where we're identifying alternatives to study, we don't know the exact dollar amount until we actually start, you know, getting quantities and putting the numbers together. So, you know, the middle alternative, which is replacement of culvert, could have came out a lot cheaper. After we ran the numbers, it's very similar, and we're thinking you're going to definitely get a structure that's going to last longer. And for, you know, with 80-20, who knows if you're going to get 80-20
Yeah.
40 years from now, 50 years from now.
How about the flooding? I heard that the bridge doesn't really do anything to alleviate the issue of flooding. It's like a dam.
Correct. So, actually, I have a.
Initially, there was a statement made that the bridge would somehow solve the flooding problem, or maybe I just misheard. Correct. So that's not accurate.
I asked if we could raise the bridge,
Oh, that was from you.
if raising the bridge would give us the ability to raise, but they can explain how that's not going to work.
Right. So what I did is I put together a quick summary of the extensive hydraulic and floodway analyses that are done, and that's what's in front of you now. Basically, the long story short of it is when we do the hydraulics and the floodway analysis, you can see on the second page there you have a FEMA map that shows you the floodway. And if I could just point out, the line that's in orange there is actually the road. That's actually East Flat Hill Road, and that orange dimension's about 1,900 feet long, okay? That's the flooding, not from the Transylvania Brook, but that's the flooding from the Pomperaug River onto the East Flat Hill Road, okay? And the 50-year storm for the Pomperaug River is where you first start to see that road get wet. Transylvania Brook has plenty of capacity in the culverts that are there now. That's not an issue. It's the Pomperaug River that actually floods the road, and the only way to get it out of the floodplain is to raise that whole stretch of road by a few feet, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's certainly not fundable under this program. So, in terms of the flooding, it's still going to be there no matter what type of structure we put out here or what span we put out here, because it's the Pomperaug that floods.
Yeah, it's basically, you're into a road improvement project now. You're raising the road, putting retaining wall structures all up and down that stretch of roadway, significantly increasing the cost.
It's a big project.
Yes.
But I did ask the question, if we're doing the bridge, if it was, we could, it's just not going to work.
Right. So I put together a quick handout. I think that pretty much summarizes the long and short of it. You're more than welcome to keep those, but I think that kind of addresses that. The other thing that I did want to talk about while we were talking about cost quick is the life cycle analysis. We ran a discount rate of 3%. What the discount rate is, it's basically the interest minus the inflation. So with the state and their bonding, we figured that they're usually around, 5 to 6%. So we use 6%. And inflation, we usually use about 2.5 to 3% per year. And what the life cycle analysis did that was presented in the RSR, it showed 3%. I ran the difference between the interest and the inflation as 2% and 2.5%. I'm going to hand those around now, and you can see that actually at 2%, which I don't know what the town would qualify in terms of a bond at what interest you would be able to qualify for. So I ran it, say you were able to get 5% interest and 3% would be what the inflation would be. It ends up being that alternate C ends up being the most beneficial to the town. So the only point we ran this out is B and C are very close, but I just didn't want anybody to get hung up on the actual life cycle cost analysis that was presented in the report, because we don't exactly know what the bond would be that the town would be able to get.
At the end of the day, our cost is 20%, right?
Yes.
So between B and C, we're talking about $60,000 or
Yes.
something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I caution that we have the oldest bridge project in the state of Connecticut that's been going on for over 20 years. I'm sure this gentleman here, this engineer, does not want to be working on this project 20 years from now.
We won't be.
Well, that's what he said. But he's still there. The joke is that they won't give him a package to retire until he finishes the bridge. So if, another consideration is if this gets stalled in the Department of Fisheries, what that means to the escalating cost of it. So,
And that is a big concern with, we met initially with the project during the rehabilitation report development with fisheries, and we talked about the rehab alternative, and they were, originally we were thinking, hey, we can just cut off the front end of the structure, because really, the front, the inlet and outlet's really the part that's really deteriorated. And then we can just do some, fish ladders to mitigate that effect. And they were completely against that. They're like, there's no way you guys can construct it to provide that natural bottom that they require for that area with that alternative. And, they were really adamant about the clear span structure. We haven't presented, at this point, I guess for the projects, the next step is once the town actually selects an alternative, we would present it to fisheries the alternative. And we don't have comments from fisheries yet. We might go through that process. The fisheries could come back and completely say, no, we don't like the structure. Please put in a clear span. And then those costs, those marginal costs do increase depending on what they require for fish mitigation.
And the schedule does get pushed out because you're looking at increased permitting time frame. You could be adding easily 6 to 10 months onto the project. You have to go further into the Army Corps permitting, get different classifications of permits.
Yet alternate C is your recommendation.
Alternate C is our.
It is your recommendation.
Yes, absolutely.
Regardless of the potential concerns you have.
We don't have any
No.
concerns with alternate C with fisheries. They
Okay.
they will,
Did I
they
read this
want a
wrong?
clear
C
span.
is the clear
Yeah,
span.
C is the clear span.
fisheries wants a clear span.
Correct.
So we're confident moving forward. If we went with C, we're going ahead.
Yes.
We're good to go and
Absolutely.
could potentially be done in
Right.
4 to 6
And that's the one that's most
months
environmentally.
if we do the prefab.
Sorry.
well,
What are we
You don't
looking
have
at?
to prefab,
What are we
we're
looking
looking
at
to put
actually doing?
accelerated measures. in place.
2019 is, if you
That's
remember
correct.
the,
Gas in place of buffers, and we still-
when we did the bridges and roads, this project was for 2019, so, this would be pretty quick from concept. Spruce Brook Road is hopefully this year. I don't dare say too much that will happen, but I'm hopeful this year. And then this bridge, 2019. The other bridge is a much bigger endeavor. It's a
Have
lot
we,
more.
have we spoken, have there been conversations with Hopper River or with Audubon?
Well, I have spoken with them briefly. Of course, they're concerned. They've been putting in habitat for trout down along through the river. The fact that the sewer system has come off this river makes it a much better
Right.
water quality. Quite frankly, the 2 foot above the river was kind of, what were they thinking? But that was a long time ago. So, yeah, it's obvious they would prefer to see something for the fish too.
Right.
But
They would prefer.
that is it is kind of a unique little spot there, with the Audubon and whatnot. And, so I'm looking for a direction from the board, that, your recommendation.
Well, I was at the Board of Finance meeting on Monday night, and they talked about this. They talked about it at length, and they are, with the exception of one person's concerns, and they lean towards C. So,
I know who that person is. What were the concerns with?
well, one member of the board suggested we put in 2 separate culverts as opposed to the clear span.
Just fixed. But the other question is about the condition. It's rated now, what's the rating?
It's rated a 4.
Which is a poor. Do we wait until we're down to a bridge that might be closed?
No.
And then try to get this all done, and maybe it's not an 80/20, maybe it's, we don't wait. And I don't second guess engineers who inspect bridges.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And at 20% of the cost, it's almost, negligible as to the difference. If you're getting a far better product for not that much money more.
Right.
And
And
one
it's
thing that we're
environmentally
long-term
sound.
present
Yeah.
value.
Right.
It's amazing.
What I started with.
The better alternative is actually the cheaper one over the long haul.
Well, I think the way they're building this new type of construction, it's friction pile driving. They're driven to a resistance of a certain amount, so they know they'll stay in place, they won't sink, et cetera. You've done the test borings,
Oh, yes, we did.
so they know that. There's essentially no bottom.
Correct. We went down 82 feet and did not find rock, so we're confident that it will be friction piles, and that'll be designed.
Will the bridge survive until 2019? We just had one that didn't.
No, that's.
It's not a 2, it's a
No,
4.
it's a 4, and it's, right.
Are you looking for a motion?
I'll entertain a motion for recommendations.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the clear span alternate seam replacement plan.
Second?
Made and seconded. Do I have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out at a,
Don't go over the bridge going home.
do you want to do yours now?
If John wants to,
John, are you ready now?
sure. That way you can
Because
leave
we
too.
moved it up.
Sure.
Okay, so next we'll have, we moved up in the agenda by a motion made and seconded and passed to review the new business. So we're going to do strategic planning task force because John is here.
Right.
Or you want me to wait?
Why don't you?
Why don't I start, and then I'll let you.
There you go. I think that's great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mike, thank you for the comments about Donna. I served with Donna, as you know, and I strongly endorse everything you said. She's a wonderful individual. I'm sorry to see her leave our community. Good, thank you. As you all know, the charter in 2009 suggested that Southbury have a strategic plan and that the first selectman initiate that activity. We started this process in the last administration. However, we were distracted with a number of items such as the dog pound activities, the library basement utilization task force, and running the town. And as a result, although we began the process, we did not get to the point where we had a task force and or a written plan. So I'm extremely happy that Jeff and Jennifer and others are now ready to proceed pending the board's review and approval. Jennifer has a bunch of information regarding the makeup of the task force and a little bit of information about what the task force is planning to do. So other than my introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Selectmen.
I just want to say that, so let me just clarify. I want to thank Jennifer and John Monteleone for coming to me. I've been quite busy. They offered to spearhead this for me, and I do appreciate that. I hate to put things onto people that are, but it will take some doing, and I only have a certain amount of time in my life, to do it. So thank you, Jennifer and John. So
You're most welcome.
This is a process, so this will be an ongoing thing, as I'm sure you all understand. So with that,
Thanks.
Jennifer.
So we tried to do a strategic planning overview on the first sheet that I've handed out to you, so we're not extending the life of this meeting. And I'm sorry we didn't get it to you earlier, but it just didn't happen.
you keep going.
So, right, so it points out some of the major points to having a strategic plan. Not only does the charter call for it, not only are our times economically very challenging with what's going on with the state, but it behooves us as responsible leaders to do this because we can't go somewhere if we don't know where we want to go. So we have a wonderful plan of conservation and development that this will supplement. That document deals primarily with land use and infrastructure, and this plan will incorporate that and complement it. So we proposed the list of members of the task force, of course open for your review and tweaking, but the logic, if it's not evident, was that we would have it wouldn't be a political thing. It would be a responsible approach to strategic planning. we would have Justin and myself, if Justin's willing and able to do it. Previous members, Democrat and Republican from the board, and then members of the land use departments and commissions. So John and I have been meeting a lot lately to come up with a strategy for how to go about this that would be most efficient. So we've put together timelines, we've talked to experts, we've engaged experts who will work with us for free and who live in Southbury, and 2 of their names are on there. So tonight what we're asking is if you would please form this strategic task force and let us get started with the process. We promise to report regularly of our updates and status, and in the documents that we have before you, we've put forth an objective, so, or what the strategic plan actually is. So if you would accept that and the membership, then we could begin the arduous task of moving forward. And Justin's not really had a chance to communicate with us on it because he just kind of threw it in his lap. But I hope that you'll join us.
Wouldn't you like to?
So anyway, that's all I really have to say. If you have any questions or comments.
And certainly this is in the beginning stages. There may be things that are looked into and need to be tweaked along the way or changed or
Sure.
something else. So I don't want to say this is
This is static. This is not static. This is just going to be a living, breathing document, and it's going to keep changing. Our objective will change, but we needed to start somewhere. So we thought a brain trust of stakeholders was a good place to start. Get the input of residents when we can, when we're ready for that. We've estimated a timeline of at least a year to make this happen. So that's where we're at.
Do you need any money, like do surveys?
no money.
Not yet.
No doubt.
We're going to talk to Jeff about a budget because we want to have minutes taken, and we
No
may
money.
want to do a monkey, whatever that's
Survey
called.
monkey.
Survey
Yes.
monkey.
Poll.
We'll get you a
We might
monkey.
want to buy a monkey.
Just gave you mine.
Is that what they do? So, other than that, a small budget that will be decided, but it will come out of his budget.
Come out of something.
Yeah.
My budget is your budget, your budget is mine. It's okay.
So obviously, it's going to be a long process. Do you anticipate that this task force that's being created now would develop an initial strategic plan, and then at a later date, in a year or two, whenever this is done, the board would create a standing strategic planning committee? Or do you anticipate that this committee is the standing committee? And the only reason why I ask that question is because if this committee is the standing committee, we might want to implement terms into it and stuff like that.
I don't know. I think we've got, Jason, I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think we need to be given some time to figure that out. I don't think you can make that definitive answer, like you say, well, this is what we're going to, and then at that point, we're going to create. Look, I think we need to get started on this and work along because it is a very large project.
Yeah.
Mike?
I'd suggest that the strategic planning task force, one of their charges is to figure out what the final charge is
Right.
of a committee, frankly.
Right.
To do the homework up front on the process, so rather than saying this is the actual charge, I think that's part of the homework. What is the final document, the final plan going to achieve and deliver in more detailed terms than you have here? I think that should be part of the charge of
No
this
question.
task force.
So we
Yeah, that
put,
makes sense. I was just
Yeah.
asking what was in.
great point.
intended
No,
at this
it's a
point.
great point. We put together a 22-step process to making this happen. And the last one is to have this task force disbanded and another one created to maintain it. That was our last step.
Because you
And-
probably don't need as many.
It would be overkill, I think. And besides, it's up to this board to review it to make sure it's working the way we wanted it to work. So all that we've done and all that to date is just draft preliminary documents for the committee to start working on. Rather than starting with a whiteboard, we started with some ideas. That's all.
So the only question I had is when we look at the Southbury resident member, it looks like we'd have 3. It says one is already named.
Right.
One's named. How will we
recruit the other two.
Yeah.
We've written a letter and a email for specific expertise that we would run by Jeff, of course. We also have written letters to the two advisory staff members and then to the commissions for him to look at.
And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, the interpretation in the charter is that this is pretty much the first selectman's initiative to do. So I don't know if do we really need to form the official committee approval, and I don't know. I know it's pretty much the first what the charter says.
So the charter says the first selectman has to pretty much draft a strategic plan. There's no guidance there, and that's just that's not something one person can do.
We should do.
But only the Board of Selectmen has authority to create a committee. So if we're creating a committee to do this, what's being proposed, I think we have to do that. And then what I would suggest is, because there's, this is the way we create a lot of committees, is to have a member from this committee, a member from that committee. Those people have to come back to the board to actually be put on this committee. Like, we're creating a committee, and then as people are put on it, I think we would have to approve, just in
Right.
The way we do it every other committee.
So we created positions right now, and what we need to do is, once you bless the commissions and the makeup of the task force,
Each
then we
commission
would go
nominate somebody.
and we would get actual names to come in and actually give you the actual 3 times in one sentence. So
I think this plan makes sense. The one thing I would ask, and I do think, and Jennifer, you said, I think it's important that this be in reality bipartisan or nonpartisan, frankly, but also that it be clear that it is. So when we look at the commission members, so that the ultimate makeup of this task force committee is nonpartisan, so that it's not heavily weighted with one party or the other, that it really is an even-handed commission. I think that's important. I think from a perception point of view, it's important, but I think from finding the best strategic plan,
right.
It has to represent,
So I can't.
I would just like to say this.
Sure, sorry.
I understand what you're saying, Mike, but what I do believe in a strategic planning task force of this size, I am going to look more closely at the qualifications of the people, and I think that this board and my administration has shown that we're not partisan. We're not going to play games, and we will need the right people. And if we have somebody who has I frankly don't know some of these people, I'm not sure if Ron is.
Yeah.
Was
He's
it-
economic development. He's a guru in it.
Right.
That's what he does for.
And I don't know what party they're from,
Paul
and I
Butler,
frankly don't
no.
care. I need to get people and if there's expertise that's on both sides, that's great. But if I have one party or the other has great credentials and can get this done, it's going to be difficult enough to get this done.
Well, and that's why, if I may.
Right.
That's why we didn't assign a chair because most of the chairs are Republicans. So we wanted to leave it up to the respective commissions to decide who they want to represent. So there can be no promise there won't be a majority of one party versus the other.
And they'll come before us anyway, so we'll have a chance.
Right.
Starting.
Yeah. And by
It's a
the way, it
starting
wasn't
point.
meant to.
I didn't.
No, no.
I didn't take it.
No, there was no assumption there.
I mean, this board has been very, to the credit of the people sitting here, worked quite well together. And the trust that's been shown has been phenomenal. So,
And these commissions usually do a good job in the past of picking people,
Yeah. We're neighbors.
they're party
all
blind.
We're neighbors.
Yeah. All right.
So I would ask for a motion to at least start.
Make
Well,
a
do we-
mo- Make a motion to
I don't know if we even need a motion.
approve,
Maybe we don't need a motion.
make a motion to form the task force
Okay.
as presented by Selectman Mallon.
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd just
All-
like to,
Oh,
I'd
I'm
just
sorry.
like to thank you and Jennifer and John for sort of jumping on this. It's going to be a big process. It's going to take a long time. I think it'll benefit the town in the long run. It's been a long time in the making. It sounds like you've put a tremendous amount of thought and effort into it already.
They've been putting quite a bit of time already.
You are truly
So,
shepherding
it
this.
sounds like it's in good hands, and
Good thing we
look
get
forward
along,
to
right?
hearing back.
I'll be honest, I mean, I'm thankful that they came forward, because there's enough to do, and this is going to take a lot of time.
It's truly our pleasure.
I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And it'll carry. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to, we did public comments, we did that. Announcements and correspondence. Any questions? You have your reports from your different, on E. We'll move down to the consent agenda. Any questions? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and it carries. We're down to the minutes of number of meetings, budget workshops. If you've read them, I'll entertain, if anybody has any questions on it. If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that we accept all 7 sets of those minutes for all of our
I
meetings.
do appreciate that,
Second.
and I do appreciate it. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and thank you. Bids and procurements on the bids for revaluation. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Do I have any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and it carries. Tax relief study, I'm still working on that. I will get to it. As soon as we catch our breath, I will probably be looking, we're working on a few possibilities, to be honest with you, of having, I may have to go in a different direction on it, but we'll get it done. New business we've taken care of. First Selectmen report and update. I just want to let you know, and I'll make the announcement now, my office has been in touch with the Connecticut Chiefs of Police Association. As you all know, there's money in the budget for police study. They have a standing committee who will do a needs assessment and make recommendations regarding what is necessary if we were to organize a police department. It is also the same organization that provided the written test and recommendation for the consultant to conduct the oral examinations for the last round of police hires. The outcome of this study will include the infrastructure needed, a proposal of the number of officers for the size and demographics of Southbury, and how the organization should look. This Connecticut Chiefs of Police Association, they are currently assisting Ledyard through its process, as well as assisting East Lyme, who plans to be organized on July 1st. This group will meet with me and my staff before the end of April, and we will start the process. So we're going to move forward with that also, if I can stand the pace. I want to say that we've had very positive comments on how the town handled our winter storm. The crews did a phenomenal job. They were out there, and the guys on the plow trucks, we all think of those guys in the plow trucks, but I'm going to tell you something. I looked outside. I was here that day. I was alone, and it was lonely at the top. And I had run of the town hall, and I looked out the window, and I thought to myself, there's these three of our people, and they're shoveling snow and snow blowing for 18 hours. And I don't know who'd want to be out there shoveling snow and snow blowing for 18 hours, but I know it's not me. But they were out there. They came in for lunch, and one guy was just dripping water all over the place. He was wet and cold. But they did a great job, and if you look around, they did a real good job. Our sidewalks, everything did a great job. Today they had a corned beef and cabbage at the senior center. It was a very large crowd in a sea of green, and it was pretty nice. They were pretty much enjoying themselves there, and it was nice to see them. And of course, the budget process is still ongoing, and Board of Finance will have their meetings, and we'll keep moving forward with that. All right. That's my report. Can we have reports from liaisons?
I missed the IT steering committee because there was a budget meeting that night. I couldn't be in two places at once. The Region 15 Space Study Committee has been canceled twice. It's now slated for next week, so keep you posted on that. Historic building, nothing going on there recently. Road study, I did hand out a note. You can read it. I'm not going to go through it. There's nothing on here of any great urgency. I'll spare you that. Unless there's something you want to hear about.
I like the reports.
Nice report. Justin?
Last night's board, or Economic Development Committee meeting was postponed until next week. The Energy Task Force has not met in the past few months. IPOC did meet. Unfortunately, I got my signals crossed and showed up a day late for that meeting. But the quarterly reports were pretty favorable in all the accounts. There's some discussion about how the library wants to handle their funds. They'd like to consider their $1.5 million to be an endowment and have it throw off roughly $85,000 a year that they could use for their efforts to go above and beyond our funding. And they elected officers for the coming year.
Jason?
I didn't have any meetings. Library met during the budget meetings. No reports.
Okay. Ms. Bailey?
Senior Commission was postponed and planning meets next week.
That snowstorm's just terrible.
Okay. Parks and Rec meets, next meets on the 23rd. His February report's in our report, so you can take a look at it, Dustin's report. EMS meets on April 15th. Region 15 is in budget season, so I just recommend everyone Wednesday the 22nd, Thursday the 23rd. There are budget workshops both nights. I encourage people to attend. And the presentation of the budget formally is Monday, March 27th at PHS in the AP room. And public hearing and adoption would be Monday, April 3rd, and then the referendum is scheduled for May 3rd.
Wow.
And the Watertown Pompano Cooperative Hockey Team's going to the finals. And Saturday
I see that.
Hoorah!
It happens. My son's on.
I
And also the basketball team, boys and girls basketball teams did great, as did the swim team. Won again the conference championship and is in the state opens this weekend.
I have one item to
Wait a minute.
talk about.
Any other business?
Thank you, sorry. That April 10th meeting, combined meeting with this board and Board of Finance, the one that I was going to be away for, does it have to happen that week? Can we have it a week earlier?
It's spring break week, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you away
I
too?
won't be here that night, April 10th. I didn't realize we had a meeting. on
I'm
April
leaving the
10th.
10th too. I think the 10th is Sunday.
It's a Wednesday.
Better not be a Sunday for
I
having a
think it's
meeting.
a
No, the
Wednesday.
10th is a Monday.
Oh, sorry.
The 10th is a Monday.
That's a joint Board of Finance?
So the 12th is the 12th is the day of the
12th is the
meeting.
Wednesday, and I'm
sorry.
gone the 11th and 12th.
So,
I'm on the 12th.
College.
Is there a regular meeting?
okay, so the 12th is the meeting that's combined, and that's the one I'm asking if we could postpone it. Or,
I'll be gone from the 10th to the
Isn't that when the
16th.
Board of Finance sets
sounds
their
like we
budget,
don't.
they invite them to attend? It's their meeting.
but they call it a combined meeting.
They invite
Well,
us.
the same as your meetings are combined.
Is there any way to move that
We
date?
should request, I think we should request that.
There's four of
that
us
they
who
move
won't
it,
be here,
Considering it's
so-
spring break weekend, we'll be away with our families.
They don't care.
We'll have to talk, we'll see if what they can do, or if they can do, or, because they have their schedules
If I
too.
get on the record that we're formally requesting, that we will make a formal request to the Board of Finance to change that meeting so that at least some members of this Board of Selectmen can attend.
Are you
Because,
around?
technically, it
Just
is,
to note, they cannot delay the meeting because the charter
It'd have to be
requires
earlier.
them to pass the budget by April 15th, so they could move it up a couple of days,
but I think they have to have their regular meeting. We'll see what we can do. That's
Will
what-
you do that, or do,
Yeah. Thanks.
you'll do that? Okay.
I'll see what
I
we
just
can do.
don't want to say.
I'll contact them and see what
Thank
they
you.
can do. If,
We could do it telephonically, I suppose, but that's a lot of people telephonically connecting.
well, and they're inviting us, so, anyway.
Well, just
Um,
consideration, that's all.
I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the ongoing police contract. So moved, second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And we'll go into executive session. Oh, and I need to invite Bill Sarofsky and Cindy Harrison into the executive session.
So moved.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said, the subject of executive session is.
Discuss, to update the board on the police contract negotiations.
Except for that, wait. Do we have a budget?
Our budget, our budget appropriate asked the board of finance.
Has to be presented. How did I miss that?
Come on in tomorrow.
Okay, very good. And when is Marcus going to give his,
I've got 5 minutes.
where from something? Is that something? All right, I'll see you in the morning.
Tentatively 9:30 tomorrow morning, and I'll when I get. I have everything.
Okay, see you tomorrow.